Welcome on the corner, the podcast, the place where we analyze the issues at hand.
I am George.
And I am Dean. Today we'll be looking at the new proposed, well, it's not even new, it's a revisiting of a proposed sentencing guideline for Jamaican juvenile offenders. And what the sentencing guidelines are is some looking at what the current sentencing guidelines are for adults, how those proposed changes will affect us, and what the proposed changes are for children and how those affect us, and just our general society and the kids in our society, how it affects rehabilitation, how it affects children development, George. And these are some of the things that have been proposed by the Minister of Justice, Mr. Delroy Chuck. How do you think that any of these changes will affect us?
Well, first, I want to say, when we use the word.
Hold on. You know what? Let me give you some more meat before you even get into it, George.
Okay.
Let me give you some more meat before we even get into it. Currently in Jamaica, the age of criminal liability for a child is 12 years old, which means that at the age of 12, you can be tried for a criminal offense. Anything beyond that, any minor before that is considered incapable of committing a criminal act. So we can safely say the child just did something wrong. But we can't look at it as a criminal act.
12.
12 is the minimum age that you can be considered a criminal in Jamaica. The stipulation is that even though 12 is the beginning, the starting point of when you can be considered a criminal, a 17-year-old is still considered a child.
That's what I was about to say. the word child, when it comes to the penal system and the word child, it just stir up our emotions in a certain kind of way. And it makes you, you start to looking at everything through and from an emotional aspect when you use the word child, opposing to using the word juvenile. You see? So we, us Jamaicans, once we hear child or children being defined in any way and the law and criminality, we started to think the worst case scenarios at all times.
Worst case scenario in what regard?
Meaning that, they're punishing children, you see? But Jamaica has a crime problem where children are committing very serious crimes. And it has to be dealt with in a serious kind of way. The proposed sentencing that we're looking at, it sounds pretty harsh. Some of them are. I am not in agreement with everything, but some of it I am in agreement with, because there must be some better avenues to quell this crime epidemic.
Yeah, but to say we're looking at avenues to quell the crime epidemic, that's one thing. But what we do have right now, currently, today, is a crime problem. We have kids committing crime. Now we're looking at 12-year-old. We say, okay, you wanted to make the distinction between a juvenile and a child for optics, right? Because of how a child seems like, it's just a baby, you shouldn't. But we're looking at 14-year-old who are committing crimes that are befitting. Well, right now, the minister is proposing for capital murder, or first-degree murder, where the minister is proposing that kids can serve and should serve life in prison.
Yeah.
Now, best case scenario is that he's now proposing that any lifer, be it a child or any child, juvenile as for optics, any juvenile who commits capital murder shouldn't be eligible for parole before serving a minimum of 20 years in prison.
20 years is a long time.
For a 14-year-old who kills?
Yes. Unfortunately, it is a long time. You see, why is it a long time, in my opinion, is because that rehabilitation should be at the forefront of when it comes to punishing any juvenile or child. Rehabilitation should be at the forefront. Do we actually need 20 years to rehabilitate a juvenile?
No, but George, we Jamaica follows the blueprint of America in so many ways. In America, kids are being sentenced to up to 90 years in prison.
Oh my God!
Kids are getting life sentences, and
Wow.
if it sounds ugly, if a life sentence sounds ugly for a child in America, there are 28 states in America that will offer you 90 years.
That is real. Well,
I don't know if 90 years is a life sentence to you, but if I'm 10 and I got 90, I'm not 100.
that's a death penalty.
Also looking at, but why is it that other people can offer the death penalty? The blueprint for Jamaica can offer the death penalty, so to speak, for criminal offenders who commit murder. But it is looked at as this terrible thing that the minister is proposing to Jamaicans.
In light of the fact that as we have a serious crime problem going on in Jamaica, and a significant amount of the offenders are, as we said, juveniles, and they do go back to reoffend over and over again because the light sentences that are handed down in the courts. And it is overwhelming the courts that these people keep returning and committing crimes without being, without the proper punishment in place. I am saying that 20 years might be a bit excessive. Without
20 years isn't that amount of time that they'll serve, 20 years is before they're even eligible for parole.
Yeah, for parole. It might be a bit excessive if proper rehabilitation parameters are not set in place. That's my whole thing, If you're gonna imprison a juvenile and keep them there, you can't just imprison them so them just sit down, so them go work out, lift weights and all them things. No, you have to have some system in place for education, skill training, something to reintroduce them back into society. You can't reintroduce them back into society a better criminal, because we all know that's what imprisonment does. In most cases, you're only building a better criminal as opposed to rehabilitating this person.
But you just say, but if so, I guess they're still going in and getting educated.
If you look at it that way, man. Yeah.
No. So are you saying to me then that you could be swayed to agree with the minister if our island home, Jamaica, was to implement legitimate rehabilitation measures,
yes,
so that kids, if you have somebody that he doesn't show signs of being able to being rehabilitated, so to speak, then if you should extend his stay in the facility, then it's justifiable if and only if we have systems in place to give kids skill training, get kids educated, let them see another way out besides the criminal path that they chose at 14. You're looking at a 34-year-old grown man who, if given an opportunity, might have learned something and might be thinking different. Are you saying that you could facilitate, or you could accept 20-year parole? Because it's still 20 years parole, Or are you saying that regardless of what is in place, it should be less than 20?
No, I could accept that, because I'm sure that these facilities will also have psychological evaluators, professional people who can make this kind of call. It's one thing to say, all right, this child has been, let's say, a career criminal, a murderer in society, because that's what we're talking about. And then lock them away for 20 years. But if you do nothing with them, you're just really re-releasing an older murderer, an older version of the younger self. and I don't see that as being productive. That certainly will definitely it would negate all.
But
Punishment is one thing, but punishment in that order. Okay, you don't want to return to this place because this place is harsh and the food is terrible and whatnot. But when you live somewhere for 20 years, that place now becomes home. You have now fully adapt to life in this place. So you returning to this place, however despicable it might appears to be, that's home. So you can't just keep them for 20 years, re-release them without a plan, because they would just come right back.
you see, it sounds like, okay, that's a good point. That if you are somewhere that, and however despicable the condition is, it becomes home because you get accustomed to it and you learn to survive in that space, that environment. However, there is one group of people that sometimes when we think about people being reintroduced to society are serving what we consider their term or paying their due to society, there is another group of people that's on the other side that suffered loss at the hands of these people. I think we call them the victims, our survivors of the survivors from the crime that they committed. Mm-hmm. There are kids who are left motherless, kids who are left fatherless, aunts, uncles, and grandma. We can go down the line. Now, these people who will never see their loved ones again, you're saying to me that after, because right now, I think the time serves about 10 years is what's on the books currently. Mm-hmm. And the introduction is now for them to be 10 years before eligibility for parole. So now the introduction is that it be 20. And this is as a deterrent, because what is happening in our society, even though criminal offenders, because we're looking at people 40, let me get this clear. Even though criminal liability starts at 12, the persons who are proposed to be serving life sentences, who would not get parole before the age of 20, are people 14 to 17 years old. So we're looking at people 14 to 17 are the people who will have to serve the minimum of 20 before parole. So we're not looking at the babies. The laws as it governs 12 to 14, there's no introduction to touch that. He proposed that we will not be touching that. But at 14 to 17, these people are introduced to crimes. These are a lot of things. A lot of times, I'm not attacking the inner city youths. I'm just saying youths in general. Youths in general who have been introduced to crime. Unfortunately, inner city gets introduced to crime a lot earlier and a lot more frequent, and it is more a part of their way of life than it is for a lot of other Jamaicans. So the truth is, the young man who is living a life of crime and by 17 is a seasoned criminal and probably the leader of his own gang who have committed multiple atrocities, we should send them in with the trail of bodies he probably has behind him.
Right.
Give him 15 years, give him some food, teach him a skill, and send him off to live his merry life.
Not necessary.
How should these victims watch him ride off into the sunset?
Hold on. It sounds okay. When you say it like that, Dean, it definitely does not sound well for the victims, But there have to be some resolution, of course. Their loved one is gone, and they have to now move forward with life. Unfortunately, Jamaica is a society where there's a lot of revenge killings, retaliation of sort. There's always some form of retaliation, and we can attribute that to our inability to resolve conflict amicably amongst ourselves. There's always why, man if you dead for this, or if you can't catch quacker, you have catching shot. Those kind of those kind of sentiments, as we have lived with those kind of that mentality in the Jamaican society all our lives. We now have to embark on some cultural changes where conflict resolution now have to be addressed in a more I'm going to say a more simplistic way. People have to start taking their own lives, their own safety, their own freedom into consideration. Like so many times, and so many of these crimes that are committed, some of them are a heat of the moment situation. You understand?
Yeah, but then the thing is, for murders like that, the minister did consider that as well, and there are provisions made for non-capital murder. The proposal is that you serve a minimum of 40 years.
That's, oh my God, man! 40 years is you see, I am with punishing crime, but you have to think about the taxpayers. You have to house. You have to clothe and feed these people for all this time. How many people can these prisons accommodate? The penal system can only accommodate such a number. The number is not a high one. I am not sure what it is now. How many people are incarcerated in Jamaica doing long time? But I am sure that there's no room or no big room. When was the last time a new prison was built? You understand? I'm sure there's no room for all these people coming in now because we have a crime problem. We have criminals, out there that needs to be caught. And we're saying now some of these criminals are juvenile offenders and they need to be imprisoned. But they're still young people. And the day is going to come where those people have to be reintroduced into society. And they cannot just come back an older version of their younger self. That is very counterproductive at this point. Because guess what? If he was a murderer at 17 or 14 and nothing has been done for the next 20 years or whatever, he's going to be still that murdering person 90% of the time. Because to go in a prison system like Jamaica, the Jamaican prison system, with no with no formal training of any kind, for you to come back to live amongst the general population, what you gonna do?
Let me share something with you. You said let me go back a little bit and then come back to where you are right now.
Okay.
You did say that there are no deterrent to crime. The minister did say that his proposal was to act as a deterrent. Because if it is, we have a serious crime problem. And the thing is, one thing the minister did also address is that if we have harsher punishment for criminals, then people who are the victims of these crimes, victims meaning the people left behind, the sons, the daughters, the mothers, then there might be less likely for reprisal. Because if it is that you are satisfied with the judgment passed down to the criminal offender, then it mitigates or eliminates any need for you to have any kind of reprisal killing for your loved one lost. Now, if it is that you are not satisfied with what the punishment is, and you feel that the person who took your loved one from you get a slap on the wrist, because you might say 20 years, but if I have experienced lost, that 20 years is nothing compared to what I want you to face. So if I think that 20 years, in my estimation, is not a slap on the wrist for you, what would sway me not to retaliate or take revenge for whatever it is that... Because
you're saying then them facing that same end result, which should deter them from that. And that is all well and good. And I think, yes, that definitely can work. But wouldn't there be an easier solution? Just bring back the death penalty. And I think that if you're going to imprison somebody for 40 years Okay, bring back the death penalty then.
No, we're stepping over we're stepping into
Well, yes, you know what? You know what? There's an organization in Jamaica, the JFJ, Jamaicans for Justice, and I know they have been very audible lately on every issue, and I don't know how they have become this, I guess, politically active body, but they have been audible on all issues, and that should have been their baby, okay? Imprison somebody for 40 years, okay? 50 years, 60, things like that. Just bring the death penalty. It costs the taxpayers less. And it is more humane. And it will be a bigger and better deterrent to crime as it is in Jamaica.
One would say the death penalty still is an extended stay in any of our penal system. That flirts with the idea that one sentence will someday be commuted to life, because there is also statutes of limitation on how long you can have somebody on death row.
That too, and I don't see. And
why. Usually it gets commuted to life.
But I don't see.
It usually gets commuted to life. So we're starting at one end and ending back at the same place.
Why are well? Let's analyze that for a minute, because in America, we know the incentive to keep in prisoners on long stretches. You understand? Because that prison system there is for profit. Okay, so the longer you keep that guy alive, yes, you're getting paid. You don't get paid when he goes to the death chamber. You understand? No, in Jamaica, it's not the same.
But could it be a viable system in Jamaica?
Yes, it could work, because guess what? The taxpayers still foot the bill. In Jamaica, the taxpayers foot the bill for imprisonment. You understand?
So you're saying that the victims are paying for the criminals?
The victims are paying for the criminals' daily living. And guess what? Once you're incarcerated, you have to get medical care. You have to get, 3 squares. I don't know if it's 3. You have to get the 3 squares.
Well, if it's Jamaica, if you get 3, I don't know if they're going to be square.
Some might be triangular, you know. But I'm saying somebody's paying for this. Yeah, and that's unfair. That's another slap to the face of the victims or the victims' families. So to eliminate that, just bring...
No. Let's not call them the victims' family. Because the truth of the matter is the families left behind are victims as well.
Themselves.
Let's be honest. The families left behind are victims as well.
Yes.
They are the ones who have experienced loss because of the decisions that other people have made to rob them of their family members.
That's true.
So they are victims as well.
They are victims as well.
Yeah, so we can't mitigate how we our look at them as any less of a victim, because they're still here. They are victims as well. They need
justification.
They need justice. They need justice as well, right?
And yes, I agree. But as I say again, like this whole approach to lengthy sentences it has to be dealt with in a different way. I think that's definitely not the solution to deter crime. I think bringing back the death penalty is more economically feasible for the country, for the taxpayers. And it's a better deterrent to crime.
But you're saying that the Jamaica for Justice has been audible recently.
Very.
Now, if you introduce the death penalty,
will
they ever stop?
No, now they will be singing on the pulpit. But guess what? We can either move forward as a nation that is thinking about the security of its law-abiding citizens, or we can continue on this trend where people who really want to return home, people who want to call Jamaica home and make Jamaica a better place, will stay away, because every time you turn on the television or the radio or some social media platform, you see crimes being committed against innocent people, because people are now more ruthless than ever. You understand? We cannot allow our country to get overrun by criminals, and that seems to be the order of the day.
Yeah, lawlessness seems to be the order of the day. I think one thing that's happening, and I think this is one thing that is eluding our government, and I'm not talking about any party. I know the opposition Mark Golden has his position on this after Delroy says what he says. But the thing is, let's not look. I'm not looking at party. I'm not looking at party lines. I'm looking at our country. I think what the short-sightedness of our criminal justice system is that it goes back to something you said earlier. We are spending so much time thinking about the incarceration of criminals and how much time that they spend behind bars, how long before parole, how long should they be incarcerated, and what we are constantly missing, the mark that we're constantly missing, is that the government is not doing anything to fix crime using the penal system. Because if we implement measures, like you said, if we can get people, in America right now, there is a for-profit prison system, which is unreasonable on the surface. Mm-hmm. You understand? Because we can say that they're disproportionately incarcerating one group or the other.
Yes, definitely.
No, we don't have these group issues in Jamaica. We just have criminals.
Yes.
Or we have law-abiding citizens.
True.
So if we take the same approach with different motives, I see it working. If somebody goes in prison and they are forced to contribute, meaningfully to society, I should say, then let them spend the time. If you're going to spend 20 years in prison, let it be 20 productive years. At least you help to pay for your meal.
So
they can work from home. You did say that prison is not. Did say that prison is now their home.
Yes.
So let them work from home.
Well, I mean,
let them work from home.
And guess what? That would be a great idea too. If we can have, but again, you're talking about a criminal-minded person here, and any access to the outside now becomes, a potential threat to the outside. So one would have to be very careful as to what can be introduced within the prison system as work from there. You know what I'm saying? It's a tricky situation.
Of course, it's tricky, and that's why we have leaders. Because we're not smart enough to lead, so we can only come up with ideas. But we're not smart enough to lead. If not, we would be in leadership. We're not. So, but we can see where ideas are introduction of ideas. Yeah. And these people are people in leadership positions. These people are supposed to be nation builders and changers. You understand? No, we have the same criminal justice system for years.
Yes.
It has proven non-productive. It has caused a cycle of criminals, and it has not deterred any criminals. No, you're saying let us give them more time. But more time in Jamaica, because the amount of criminal, you said this to us as well, George, which is genius in my opinion. We don't have the kind of money to feed the number of criminals incarcerated. So the only way to combat that is that we don't even need to find the money to feed them. Because they're working from home and feeding themselves. So if they want their stay to be lengthy, they can pay for their meals, and we can extend the time to facilitate them as much as they want. And we can't even frown upon them because they are paying for their stay.
There was one suggestion where somebody said that, and I'm not sure who actually suggested it. I think it was a public suggestion somewhere. Where somebody actually said that have the family members of the criminal actually pay some fees or some fees towards the housing and feeding and stuff like that.
I think that's unreasonable.
Yeah, because most of these criminals are coming from poor background, inner city garrisons and stuff like that. You see, we have to address the problem at its core, and it's coming from culture. We are, our culture promotes crime on a level that is, it is almost what's the proper word for it? We promote criminal behavior in every aspect of our culture.
I understand that it's cultural.
It is cultural.
It is cultural.
You understand? Why is it? Why does it have to be? And we all fall victim to it. You understand? Me and you dance already, and we favorite song come on, and the first thing we do, we make a finger in a gun and put it in the air and go bow, bow, bow. Because that...
George, speak for yourself. I put two of my fingers to the heavens.
That's right.
And I thank the Lord for this wonderful talent that made this music. So I raise my hand differently, George.
No,
I
sir.
don't know if you're doing the boy thing, but I'm raising my hand to the Lord
No.
and thanking him for this wonderful music.
No, we have to both have two shots. How are you? No, because you see, it is so embedded in our subconscious that we are not trying to be violent or portraying acts of violence, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
the music is way too violent. Let me tell you, music is it is the ultimate what's the word? I mean, it's the tool that shapes a culture.
Somebody would say that the culture is what leads the music.
No,
and the
but
music
it's-
is simply a testimony
But it's
of the
qui-
temperature of
it's
the music
quite,
and the culture.
It's quite the opposite. It's quite the influence of music over our day-to-day lives is such a powerful thing. You understand? And it's the music that changed. If everybody all the DJs start DJing about a certain topic tomorrow morning, everybody, all the fans, the kids, everybody gravitate to whatever is popular. And it doesn't just go for dancehall music now. This is music across the world. Music shapes culture.
But George, I've not seen all the courtrooms in the world, but I've never seen a song introduced as Exhibit A. No.
And let me tell you something.
I've never heard.
And that is where the problem is, because the song...
Are you saying the music should be on trial?
No, we can't.
But you're putting the music
hold
on trial.
We can't indict the music.
Mm-hmm.
But what we can do is hold these artists responsible. We can hold them accountable for what they portray in society, in the minds of the young.
But that's what censorship takes care of.
Or maybe censorship needs to be reintroduced.
Censorship takes care, but censorships have changed. Since music is the music and censorship has changed. But censorship takes care of that. Now in the courts, there is no need for the music can be one thing and it influences you yesterday, and whatever the music suggests, if you should pull a trigger based on what the music said, I see you serving 40, at best if you're fully grown and it's non-capital 50. If it is capital, and if you're a juvenile, your best bet is for 20, based on our Justice Minister, Mr. Chuck. But the truth is, though, as much as music is an influencer, the fact is, when our government is where I think we spend a lot of time, and the government, I think what happened is the government is introducing penalties for criminals. And I think with the introduction of increased time or making the penalties harsher for criminals, the government is evading their responsibility as a government to make sure that they do things to deter or lessen the crime in the country. I don't think the thing is, the guy with the gun who is shooting at another person with a gun, 20 years is nothing to him. He's shooting after a person with a gun. So his life in that gun battle, 20 years is nothing to him. Right now, he's fighting for his life right now. And getting shot is just part of the job. Dying is just part of the job. 20 years for him is a reprieve. That's a break. For him, 20 years in prison is a break. Because yesterday was even more dangerous than the 20 years that you are proposing to give him.
So then society has to change. The minds of the youth has to change when it comes towards criminality.
Then the government needs to make this change.
But how? It can't just squarely fall in the lap of the government to do that, because the government can do but so much. Let me tell you this.
So you don't see the government introducing the increase as them evading their own responsibility?
I beg to differ on that note, because guess what? Me and me step on your toe right now, and you don't like it. You understand? You say, hey, boss, you step on my toe, and yo, I suck your mother. XYZ. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
You take out your gun, me take out my gun. Nobody now think about the 20 years, the 40 years. No, at that point in time, no one is thinking about the consequences of their actions, because our culture has taught us that we must retaliate. Our culture has never taught us to resolve our conflicts in an amicable fashion. Even though we learn from an early age, sorry, sir, sorry, ma'am, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. We learn all the manners, all the good form of mannerism. And we were praised for being mannerable children when we were smaller. Your parent could bank on us being mannerable when we were kids. And if we go outside and we didn't show proper mannerism, our parents punish us for that. Okay? But in society, in general, once the adults come into play, everybody just, because the machoism in our society and the availability of guns, you understand, and the formation of gangs and this kind, all of this is like a recipe for disaster.
So if it is that, as you say, this is an individual or family structure to take care of all of this, and we need to change the culture of the country. The truth of the matter is, and even though it sounds beautiful saying, there are people who are cultured differently. There are people growing in certain areas that are actually cultured differently. They are cultured to a system of violence. When the first thing that happened, I was watching a video recently, horrifying video, of a young man feeding his daughter. And she was refusing the food. Mm-hmm. And this guy was pounding on this child. This child wasn't 2 yet. Mm. This guy was pounding on this child and force feeding this child. Mm. Pounding on this child. So even before this child can understand themselves at 5, the only idea of conflict resolution or that this child knows is torture, is anger, is brutality. Mm-hmm. No, you're saying to me that if somebody learns only brutality from the beginning, I don't see the person who is introducing constant brutality to anybody changing their child's mind culturally. So I think the onus is also on a government. And we might bring it up, we need to introduce this in the home and parenting, but it is still on the government in areas such as not only education, because after education, we're now 14, I think rehabilitation is one mark that the government has been missing for years. And I say rehabilitation not because, a man go prison and he need to learn a skill, because a lot of people coming out and they're not going to learn a skill. So if it is that you're going to stay in these wonderful institutions and you consider them home, it's not going to be a free ride. Hard labor is hard labor. And once you're there, you will pay for your meal. You will contribute to society. And you say
that's a good idea. I agree.
Yeah, you said to me earlier, but if you introduce them to a society, then they're going to seek a way to escape. Of course. And if I was incarcerated and I see a door ajar, you don't have to tell me twice.
That's right. But
you're gonna have to catch me.
So again, it's a chance.
No, it's not a chance. It's not a chance. These are government officials. These are the brightest minds. We vote for them because we vote for them because they're the brightest minds that we know. We form lines and create motorcades behind them because these guys are the brightest minds that care about us.
We should form lines and motorcades behind them. But listen, everything cannot be blamed on government. And this is a common mistake that is being made by Jamaicans. We look to government to solve all our issues. When you are arguing with your neighbor, that is not something that the government should be addressing. The government, I keep saying it, Andrew Holiness is not Superman flying around or Batman with a cape a S on his chest or anything like that.
Don't neglect Mr. Golden, you know, because we're not making this politics right now.
Okay.
There's Mr. Golden.
And then he's no superhero either. He's
Okay.
furthest from it. You understand? But what I am saying is that we need to stop looking to government for the answers, because the answers actually lies within the people. You see this crime wave where I get out of control, it has to be nipped in the bud, but it has to start within the home and the schools. Programs have to be formed. The Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Justice need to come together and form a joint task force to address criminality in the schools. They have to start weeding out these young offenders, because that's what we're talking about today, the young offenders. And how you going to identify them? You know who see them first? The teachers see them first. The teachers in the schools see these young criminals before everybody, before them own mother. You know why? Because when they go home, their mother, she had the biggest enabler. She had the one where I go block the street, not my baby.
But the truth is, a lot of these mothers,
So
that's not their baby. The baby that comes home to a lot of these mothers isn't the same baby isn't the same person
that goes to school. That's what I'm saying.
That's right.
So who's seeing them in their true form? The teachers, the principals. So the government need to form an effective body that's going to address this situation because if you have somebody, we're going to the school, and the principal and the teacher them say, John Tom, him is a problem because last week him boxed down Mary Jane, and this week him kick up Tommy, and he's been doing this. And somebody go in there and really look into John Tom's background, look into his family life, visit the home, sit down with John Tom and address him from early. Put John Tom on the radar from early as someone who might be a candidate for criminal behavior. You understand?
No, you're fully agreeing with me, John, that the problem is, even though it's cultural, that what the government is doing is dodging their own responsibility.
Well, they can do more.
Because they can do a lot more. Because if you leave it on just the parent, like we said, the person who comes home isn't necessarily the person who goes on the street.
That's true.
A lot of parents. When I was a child, I wasn't involved in criminal activity, but there were things that I would do outside my home that I would never do.
That your mother wouldn't be proud of.
My mother would never know that version of
and
me.
That's most children.
And she left this world not knowing that version of me, thankfully. I'm still her baby.
Okay.
Right? But the thing is, as even though the responsibility is on parents to raise their child, the thing is, government can't just say, let us hit them with 10 more. There has to be systems and programs in place that, one, deter, and two, rehabilitate. So you can't just have it that, let the homes deal with it. The government, 20 years added, as attractive as it sounds, as a punishment and a so-called justification for crimes, if to the victims, whether it be the person left behind or the person who experienced the crime, well, it's murder, so then the person who experienced the crime isn't here anymore. But I'm saying to the victims who are left behind, right? And the victims left behind are family. And for those persons, even though the 20 additional year, or the 30 or the 40, however long it is that is there, sounds attractive to them, the responsibility is still on government to put things in place government can't prevent crime. The initial crime.
Right.
Let's say you can't prevent the initial crime that happened.
Yeah.
Not the future crime, because you can put things in place to prevent future crime.
Yeah.
But the crimes that had happened already, you can't blame the government for them. But what the government can do is put systems and policies in place so that these offenders, less of them becomes repeat offenders.
Yes.
You have to really invest in, one, rehabilitation, and you have to make it easier on victims. by not letting victims pay the way for people who are coming out to make them victims again. Let these guys be in prison. If it is for-profit prison that we need in Jamaica, let it be for-profit prison. Because the truth is, we can't say that people are being imprisoned in Jamaica disproportionately. Because we have one set of people, Jamaicans.
Okay.
We don't have nobody else. So we can't say, but there's another system that has that and is for profit and they disproportionately incarcerate other people. You understand me?
Yeah, I mean, listen. I mean, I can ask you this question. As as an investor, right? You know, if you should get the opportunity, right, to put some money. Let's say the Jamaican penal system was up for grabs, so to speak, and you get the opportunity to invest some money with fantastic returns. Would you invest?
If there is an opportunity to invest in a for-profit prison in Jamaica, I would break the bank right now. There's two businesses in Jamaica.
Right.
The young criminal mind might hate hearing this. But there's two businesses in Jamaica that is, in my opinion, two of the most feasible to go in. That's the morgue.
Yes, the morgue.
That's the morgue.
The morgue is very, very great.
And the idea of a for-profit prison is very attractive.
Yeah,
because it's sad
Mm-hmm.
that young Jamaican men
Right.
want to spend most of their time occupied with other young Jamaican men in a warm, humid, uncomfortable place
Right.
with limited access to anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's a harsh reality to face that people commit crimes without regard, and just thoughtless, and to put it in this most simplistic form, if you can go out there and thoughtlessly commit murder, and figure that, okay, I just committed murder, but I am expected to live out the rest of my days committing more murder. You understand? Because this is the thing. All of these bad guys, these criminals committing these crimes, when they're caught, and the JCF can attest to this, when they're caught, nobody cries louder. Nobody screams at a higher pitch. You would think some young girl getting brutalized in a corner. But they holler, scream, and cry like nobody's business. Because guess what? They don't want to go to prison. And worse off, they don't want to die. So again, I'm always going to hark back to the death penalty. Jamaica needs that. Jamaica needs the death penalty.
I agree with you 100%.
You
I've always
understand?
been an advocate for the death penalty.
The long sentencing, yes, it might be a deterrent, but for these juvenile offenders, teenagers, I don't support it just extending the term. I want that to be extended with something behind it, with them, something. Listen, it may not. Nothing is going to be 100%. Let's get that out of the way. We're talking about human beings here.
Okay.
Nothing is 100%, but let's say 60, or even 40, which is a failure. If 40%
of them come back as rehabilitated souls,
that's a success.
we save
right?
20% of the youth.
That's success.
Of course, that's a success. We're losing all of them now.
Exactly.
We're losing all of them now.
It's better than what's out there now, what's being done now. So, yes, if they can, and again, we have, and let me just say, Minister Nigel Clark is doing a phenomenal job. Yeah, no new taxes in so many years, and the economy is in a really good position, and I can appreciate that. But this crime monster, it has to be quelled. It has to stop somewhere. And if it's going to be money needed to be a part of the solution, Minister Clark, yes, you need to get
some money.
to get with Mr. Chag and figure out how you guys are going to finance these things, to make the country better. Because guess what? Any program you put in a prison, implement in a prison system, is going to cost taxpayers. You understand? Rehabilitation, schooling, educating these people is going to cost taxpayers significantly. You understand?
That's true.
And let me just break it down. One teacher, one security guard, and one teacher for 5 people in a cell or in a room, a classroom, whatever, for 4 hours, 3 hours. How much money do you think that's going to cost the government?
Over 365 days is going to be a lot.
You
Gonna be a
understand what I'm
crazy amount of
saying?
money.
So it's going to cost to fix this problem. And again, I will not stop singing on the fact that the culture has to change. The music has to change. Artists need to find something else to DJ about other than shooting and gun. Too many times.
But George, this is what the youth want to hear, and this is this is what sells.
Well, guess what? Somebody have to make the unpopular decision to censor these things. You can't, let me tell you.
So are you saying then that the Jamaican Amendment needs to change and we need to lose freedom of expression?
To some degree, yes.
To some degree?
To some degree.
And then after freedom of expression, what else do we lose?
You see?
And what other whatever other civil liberties do we give up afterwards? What do we give to the government, and when does it stop?
Hold on. Let's not equate this with the United States.
We're not talking about United States. I'm talking civil liberty is civil liberty, regardless of where. Every sovereign state have certain civil liberties that we as citizens enjoy. If we are forced to give up any civil liberty, when does it stop? And what are we prepared to give up? If we are going to remove it, because I don't like what is being presented by the artist. I don't like what he is saying, even though 50% of the island love it and they jump and gyrate to it. 50% of the island love it. I'm going to say, and even if nobody else likes it, but the artist has his freedom of expression, and I remove his freedom of expression from him.
Yes.
Is it therefore now unreasonable if I lose other civil liberties? Because I'm quite satisfied with the artist losing his civil liberty to express himself in a way that he sees fit and that lines his pocket with money. Because I'm telling you, less Mark X would sell. I'm telling the car dealership would have a problem. And if you look at the trickle-down effect, cars aren't selling, gas isn't buying. Everybody's going to have a problem.
You start running off in that direction, please.
I'm sorry.
Let's come back here.
I got carried away.
Come back here. A little bit. You understand? Because guess what? You don't need to DJ about guns and shooting and crime to make a hit song. You understand?
I agree, but that's a personal decision.
Yes, but somebody need to be held responsible.
So somebody need to guide my personal decisions?
Yes. Yes, they must be. Listen to me. Listen. When you give people too much freedom of expression, you know what they do?
Express themselves.
They express themselves to in any way, shape, or form
That's what freedom is.
to other people who, if they're even expressing themselves in a dangerous and misguided way, they manipulate that freedom. You understand? And that is one of the worst things. When you manipulate freedom of expression and you start creating victims, because that's what you're doing. You're victimizing people. When you tell the youth...
Isn't the penal system that correct?
No.
The penal system...
No.
You have my attention.
Absolutely. When you create with your artistic expression, you're creating young criminals. You need to be held responsible. Once upon a time they had this thing not fit for here play, right?
Yeah, then let the Broadcasting Commission censor, and the Broadcasting Commission does censor.
But that's not where it's at anymore, because nobody listens to the radio like that anymore. It's not the radio that is creating this. You understand? No, streaming and all of that. And we know streaming has no control.
There is no governance of streaming.
Exactly.
And when you start, because now you're talking, the only thing, streaming, you can't look at streaming because streaming isn't even local.
But that's where it's at.
Streaming is international, so people are putting their thing out and people will have access forever.
We just have to stop our people from making that kind of music.
How can we stop our people from making that kind of music? What if our people are now residents of some other country and makes the same music?
All them criminally accountable. I'm just saying,
No.
Hey, don't make me to the prime minister. No, you gotta. Listen. There must be consequences, man.
I agree.
You cannot hide behind. You cannot continually.
Yeah, but we can't
hide behind artistic
expression.
freedom.
But George, we can't. But we
You
can't
understand?
hold.
It's a double-edged sword, and it's corrupting the youth.
I agree. I agree that the music does its own damage. I agree that the music does its own damage. However, holding artists liable for freedom of while with considering freedom of expression in every sovereign state is not going to happen.
Maybe not.
It's not going to happen.
But it's a great idea, isn't it? To say the least.
It's different. It's different.
You don't agree.
It's
That's
different.
fine, because guess
different.
what? Next time you see Chronic Law with a gun in a video.
Chronic Law videos are different. He's a talented young man, but his videos are different.
Okay. How many youths love to listen to Chronic Law and watch those videos?
But I'm not attacking Chronic Law. There are other artists that does different music that's very, very graphic and very violent, and it's a part of our culture. And I will tell you the truth, there are music that Chronic Law does that I bop to, and other artists that express even more violent than Chronic Law, and I also bop to. But it's music, it's our culture, and it's our expression.
It has
to
carry responsibility.
It does.
If this continues, listen, if our current trajectory in our culture with the music and violence and its direct correlation, okay, if that connection is not severed, then we are just dressing the wound.
But George, what you're saying to me now is that if Mr. Chuck if you should have a sit down with Mr. Chuck and let me not bring Mr. Chuck in this, but let me say, if somebody is on trial, now one of the witness or one of the evidence should be one of the artists with explicitly violent content, and say, so he should he be liable for a civil suit because of the person was listening to his music at the time of the murder?
No. And this is how that works, because it plays out in America all the time. Okay, and even though the influence is no less dramatic, you understand, the young man is formed through information. And information that is repeated, you understand, it eventually takes root. Music is one of that medium that the repeated information eventually takes root into the young mind. Madison Avenue spend a lot of money, these big ad agencies, and they spend millions yearly, okay, making commercials, making ads to sell us products, okay? And how that works, they repeatedly show us things that we don't even want, we don't even need, but yet still the influence of the repeated information, okay, being in our faces is strong enough and powerful enough to make us walk into a store and dig in our pockets, find money we don't even have to buy a product we don't need.
I agree.
And that is the same influence that the music have on our youth. You cannot address youth crime, a crime amongst youth, without addressing what is the driver. And you just don't get up and join a gang, if it wasn't a cool thing to do. What makes violence and crime cool among the youth is what's being cool in the culture. And what's being cool in the culture now, that's been dictated by what the music has been pushed on these kids. The music is saying it's okay to get a gun. It's okay. It's cool to have a gun. If you don't have a gun, you're not gonna have the girls. It's okay to be dunce. It's okay to be criminal. It's okay to chop the line. All these things. We hear it over and over again.
I can agree with you that the music does have its influence, and I agree with you as well that people need to be more responsible with what they put out there. It's sad that it is that if somebody thinks that this is what makes them the most money, they're going to sing about chopping the line. It's sad that all of this, I agree that the music should change. I agree the culture should change. I agree that what is delivered and what is what the impressionable mind hears is what the impressionable mind grows to adapt. It is what attracts the impressionable mind, and it is his new life. However, once we get into trying to remove people's freedom of expression, in a sovereign state like the one we grow up, it cannot happen. It will never happen. We can only ask. The only thing the government can do, and the government have been doing, is censor the music. And the thing is, censorship only affects the national radio stations, right? But there's access to information in a way that it has never been before. Everybody has a smartphone or access to information, and whatever is put out there will be heard any which way. It's almost ridiculous to have censorship now, because if to be honest, what was censorship a few years ago isn't censorship anymore.
Not at all.
What is on public for public viewing now, the profanity that is on public viewing now was never true. Was never this in years gone by. So censorship has changed, because the truth is access to information has changed, and censorship is almost pointless now.
That's true.
Censorship is almost pointless now. Freedom of expression cannot change, so the artist will never be liable, and so the only thing that we have, what it boils down to, is that responsible governance needs to take place as it relates to crime, punishment. Responsible governance needs to take place. What the government seem to not be getting is that, honestly, rehabilitation needs to take place. And if we talk about rehabilitation for grown-ups, it's one thing. But in the penal system, when it comes to juveniles, 14 to 17, that you want to increase from 10 years to 20 years before eligibility for parole, I think, like you, I think that's a lot.
Yes.
That's a lot. And I think the only way it makes sense, because it sounds attractive as a deterrent, yes. It sounds attractive as a deterrent. If you listen to, 10, 20 sound more than 10, 50 sound more than 20. It sounds attractive like that, but the truth of the matter is the government is neglecting their responsibility by not putting systems in place to rehabilitate, especially the young. Because like I said earlier, the young mind is impressionable. If you put garbage in, there will be garbage out tomorrow. If you put things in of substance now, then you are guaranteed, not even likely, it's almost guaranteed to get good out. So if we are going to have kids incarcerated for an extended period of time, then let us spend that entire time prepping them for life after prison.
That's true.
Let us not let them spend 20 years and come out 30 years, 34. You go in at 14 and... Because listen, what we're looking at is a minimum of a 34-year-old. That's a full-grown man.
Yes.
Coming out as a seasoned criminal.
That's right.
So
A
better criminal. So if you send him in at 14, he will not be eligible for parole until 34. That's a grown man.
That's a grown man.
So if you had 20 years to change that life,
right,
why spend 20 years just having him suffer? And use that 20 also to let him understand that there's only one way to feed himself, and that is through work. Because he knows while he is in that facility, he knows that he had to pay for himself. It wasn't a free ride. It wasn't easy. It wasn't business as usual. I didn't get up and get 3 square meal. It wasn't a gift.
right.
I had to earn every meal I had for that 20 years I was in there. Minimum of 20, because 20 isn't necessarily the only time that you'll spend. Minimum of 20. I had to feed myself for that entire time. And I contributed to my stay. I don't want to pay the God that I didn't like very much. So I'm not coming back here to pay him some more.
That's right. So final thoughts, on this. You just sum it up nicely there. That's one, incarceration with rehabilitation, work, put programs in place for these people to be productive even though they are behind bars. That's been done. That's been done in other countries. So it's not an impossibility to have it done in Jamaica. Again, it might cost, but
Initially,
but
there must be a capital investment.
yes, but something can be done there. And the next point to leave with is the fact that we need an independent body, independent of the JCF, independent of the Ministry of Education and stuff like that, but some joint body that's will address these
You mean like
young
an individual
criminals.
from each of these stakeholders?
Yeah. For the JCF, the Ministry of Education, this person have to be an intellectual, a teacher of sort, a psychologist of.
Psychologists would be good.
You understand? You gotta have a team. The island is not that big. You understand? One team should be able to cover the whole island. Go into these schools, address these problem kids, address their home life, and catch them in the early phases of criminality. So you can steer them, because we don't have that.
So we don't have any real hardcore social interventions.
We don't, exactly. And that's what they cry for. The JFJ keep, crying about everything else. I don't hear them implementing nothing like that. I don't hear them say nothing like that. You understand? I don't mean to sound like I'm coming down hard on the JFJ, but I think they're way too politically polarized in recent times. I see them saying a lot about everything, but I don't see them saying what they should be actually saying and addressing the issues that they should be addressing. So this is directly towards them. But yes, to the point I was making is that, yes, too many crimes are being committed in the schools. And we're talking about young criminals here, and we need to have early intervention so you can redirect these people who are thinking about joining gangs. It's a recruitment process, And if you can counteract the recruitment process, you succeeded. You're succeeding. You're pushing the crime number down, the murder rate down, and you're making Jamaica a better place. But it cannot be business as usual.
I agree.
And the next point is, again, and I'm going to continually saying it, these artists, something has to be done. I don't know if it's, as you say, artistic expression should, but let me tell you, these artists need to stop, be held responsible for their actions now, because the actions that the benefit they reap from their actions now by putting out garbage to our youth, you understand? And you are becoming millionaires and multimillionaires by putting out the garbage. But look at the devastation that's being done in its wake. You understand? Look at when you see 14-year-olds and 17-year-olds taking up guns and murdering people. That is you are part of that equation, and you cannot take yourself out of it because you're complicit. Yes, you cannot just take yourself out of it because you get to go foreign and you perform on big stage. No, it has to be better, and we have to do better. So in closing, this segment here, I want to thank the listeners. Please listen the podcast on. We are going to be on all platforms. So until next time, I am George.
I am Dean. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button.
That's right.